We purchased this place in 1987. It was a little over 800 acres, and the reason for it was really as a place to get away. I'd grown up in the city, I'd always lived in the city, but there was a part of me that just always wanted to be out in the country.
We looked for 10 years and prayed for 10 years for a piece of property, and this came along and we purchased it.
It was pretty rough. There were not any developments on it. There were a couple of little ponds that were washed out. And that appealed to us because we wanted to make it our own. We didn't want a ready-made kind of place. Well, it was grown up. The 30 acres or so that had been pasture land was grown up with saplings of pine and gum and so on. And there were cross fences in different places because it was used for cattle. We purchased a tractor and a few implements, and the man came out and showed us how to turn it on, and he got in his truck and left. So we learned about bush hogging and using a disc plow and so on, and planted some green fields and began to develop a use of it in that way.
The principal reason we bought the place was wildlife.
Yeah.
Once we learned that you can do forest management to benefit your wildlife and have a healthy forest, and we kind of started leaning toward that. This field is, we call it Clear Cut 2, even though it doesn't really resemble that anymore, but we came in and we planted Russian olive and crabapple and persimmon in different places around the field to just facilitate wildlife management. And then you can also see that we planted for soil management. We planted the center aisle, and then we would allow the other 2/3 to go fallow so that we could give that soil a rest on either side. So this year when we come in, we'll leave this center aisle fallow and plant the 2 outsides.
We decided early on that we wanted to manage for quality, and we started doing that, and we're very assiduous in it, and after 3 or 4 years, I guess, that would probably have been when you were in college, we began to see some nice bucks.
But this is one of the 10 food plots or 12 food plots that we have, and we've tried everything, and it kind of boils down to well, what we've stuck with is it boils down to what's efficient, what works well. We've tried soybean in this field, but you know, all the plants made it to about 2 inches. The deer were just tearing them up. So, you know, it's just not that cost effective or to plant that. Even though it's good protein, we know we can still achieve that with some other methods. Right. You know, the more you can make work what you already have, or streamline it and make it more efficient, you know, the better off you're going to be. And well, here's a power line. It almost cuts the property in half. It runs mostly in the upland part of the property. And I don't know if you can tell, way down there, we'll plant sections of this in winter food plots. And then it's all about that fallow rotation. And then there's several areas that are too steep and are highly erodible, so we don't plant those at all. We just bush hog those at different times of the year. And then each spot's on a 3-year rotation.
As far as timber management, we got some professional advice, and over the years we had a hard time starting because the timber, both the upland part and the lowland, the swamp areas, were relatively mature because it had closed canopies, and it was just beautiful looking through that, you know, that understory and not seeing a lot of trash but as we gradually realized that was not good for the timber management, it was not good for wildlife or anything else, we developed a program of cutting, and we had some major areas where we did thinning cuts of hardwood and some pine, mature pine, and then did several clear cuts to try to inject some diversity in the place.
Well, this is a 30-acre stand or 35-acre stand. It's part of a much larger area that we planted in loblolly pine. It's about 170 acres total. And this particular stand we planted in '87, right after Mom and Dad bought the property. And it used to be a hay field. And It's been thinned one time, and we continually use fire as a management tool, keep the mid-story completely away and to really nurture that understory. And it's a lot of fun. We got a lot of help, and everyone loves using fire. It's fun. It's cost effective, and you can see the results are pretty brilliant. Yeah. We have about a 74-acre seasonally inundated marsh, which you know, it's wet in the winter and dry in the summer type deal. And it was really becoming overgrown. I think when y'all first purchased the property, I mean, it was a lot of open water out there.
Most of it.
Right, and then over time, willows and maples and all kinds of stuff started growing out there, and actually there was a grass mat that floated, so a dog could run across it, but a human couldn't. Mm-hmm. It was pretty brutal. Well, Dr. Kaminsky came down and looked at it and just saw a few hints of some valuable wildlife forage out there, like the wild giant millet. And he said, you know, if you can do these things, then I bet this place will really start hopping as far as, you know, waterfowl. And so we did. We disturbed the soil. You know, we actually used fire as a tool in the marsh, which was incredibly beneficial. Worked so well down there.
At the upper end of the marsh, it's looking west, and to see the birds on the background of the sunset, you know, in the afterglow, and come into the marsh. People that never been duck hunting, you know, not even hunters, I mean, they just love that. I mean, it's a great experience. Primarily the focus educationally has been through the ministry. We created a foundation and deeded 70 acres of land over there, which encompasses the barn and ministry cabin and so on, and the Odyssey course. And we deeded that so it be perpetually part of the foundation. And in 2000, a group of men from Tuscaloosa approached us about having an event out here, which is a weekend event called Outback. And this was sort of a prototype. They wanted to try and see how it worked. And what it represented was a distillation of a week-long experience out in a camp out in California, to try to do that on a weekend basis and distill the teaching and the experience and the so on in that weekend, which would allow a lot more people to be able to experience it because of expense and time framework and so on.
So they'll come and they'll camp out over by the barn. We set up tents for them, and then they have several talks throughout the weekend, and we feed them. And then the activities portion of that event, or the high ropes and the low ropes, and it really breaks down lots of barriers and walls so that they can get transparent really quickly, and you can just kind of cut through the junk that's going on. You know, a lot of times it's classic. You'll see a daughter show up with her dad, and she does not want to be here. You know, so she's steaming, stomping her feet and everything. Well, by the time they get to this, you know, they're hugging each other for dear life, because one, that's their only option up there, and two, they kind of rediscover that it feels good.
One of the things that maybe we've not stressed enough is we've said in one sense things have just evolved and happened, but the input of other people has been a major part of things. And you know, again, the Bible says that there is virtue in many wise counselors, and we count that extremely important. I think when you've been blessed with things like this, it's just sort of it goes with the territory that you need to maximize the use of it. And a tremendous motivation and sort of reinforcement of the things that we do are as people come here and use it, and they say, oh, this is so neat, it's this and that, you know, and they discover things, and it's just sort of, it's an added incentive for us to try to make it better.